Welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk, Spartan Stadium. Michigan State destroyed today 34-7 against Minnesota. I'm not surprised that Michigan State lost. I'm not surprised they lost convincingly. But the defensive problems continue, Paul. And the running game, I think Michigan State only had like 14 tailback attempts today because they rarely had the ball because they rarely established control of the ball. Meanwhile, Minnesota did not punt. They've only punted 3 times all year. Minnesota, first of all, is very good. Secondly, Michigan State just cannot play right now with a good team. Michigan State's had some injuries. Jaden Reed played today, had a little bit of an impact. Peyton Thorne tried to get him going, made some mistakes here and there. But your thoughts about the game today as we get going here?
Well, I think what Michigan State wanted to do and what you have to do against a team like Minnesota that's not going to let – a lot of people ask you, why didn't have plays downfield? Well, every defense gives up something. Minnesota's defense, like Michigan State's old defense under Mark D'Antonio, doesn't give up plays downfield. So Anybody that wants those intermediate, long plays and longer plays are going to be disappointed. So you got to give what the defense gives you. And
I'll stop you right there. They do a really good job with 2 deep zone. We only have about 14 minutes now, 13 minutes out here. We got to roll it. I'll stop you right there because they do a really good job of keeping 2 safeties deep or playing zone and stopping the run with a standard number. They don't have to load up. Minnesota does not. They stop the run with a standard number, and then they have an extra defenders back there. It reminds me of Iowa's defense a little bit. So like you're saying, there's not a lot downfield. You can try to test them down there, but
no, it's good. It's a good, solid zone defense that has players that are veterans that have been developed well within that system. And I think one of these people are like, well, what's wrong with Michigan State? And personally, that's the style I saw tonight from Minnesota. That's a style of program that I favor. Instead of shuttling guys in and out of the program through the portal, this guy's not talented enough, run him out of town. I know that works, but when you have a team like Minnesota that's veteran and they're winning about 9 or 10 games a year and then they cycle up like this, that is the kind of program I feel personally that I'm more inclined to, believe in than, the quick fix route. And tonight, I'm not saying Michigan State is – they're doing it. Let's put it this way: PJ Fleck has had 6 years to build.
Yes,
we don't know where Michigan State is going to be at under Mel Tucker
in 6 years.
In 6 years, what we do know is that Michigan State did a heck of a job last year with what the pieces they had available. This year, the schedule's harder than it was last year. These 2 games, going out to Washington, come back and facing a completely different team in Minnesota is difficult. Michigan State's not good enough. Wasn't good enough if they had all their players to beat this Minnesota team, in my opinion. But they need to do things better than they did and put a better product on the field. And, some of it is a byproduct of injuries. You talk about like the defensive line that I felt was going to be a strength of this team. It's not right now because they don't have their pieces. Jeff Pietrowski, you can say what you want about Jeff Pietrowski, but he's an energizer guy. He's a leader, and he would have helped out tonight against this style of team. Jacob Slade, without a doubt, would have helped out. You definitely be in a better spot if you weren't playing guys like redshirt freshmen or guys that don't have a lot of experience.
Snow and Henderson. And Barrow plays half the game. That's a factor. It would have been a lot different. Not saying that Michigan State would have won, but the reason why this thing spiraled out of control, besides the turnovers, was the fact that Michigan State plane got worn down and the defense was on the field for a long time. So what can they control? I think they can do a better job, have to do a better job on third down. There was a lot of times where they should have were in position to make a play on third down and just flat out tripped, flat out missed tackles. And there's one or two like Brule that one time with that shoulder tackle. That was not so good.
Yeah, and you wonder why Brule's not on the field. Well, when you see stuff like that in a game like this, in that scenario, and a guy can't make a tackle.
Wasn't good. And, and those things all amplify what the situation is. Situation is Minnesota's really good and Michigan State has problems and gets amplified when you have the injuries. In terms of Minnesota's passing attack, Michigan State came in rightly to stop the run first and make them throw it. There's different ways to do that or whatever. I thought Michigan State, as the game went on, did a better job of disguising their coverages. They had a little more success slowing them down, playing some zone, and looking like they're going to play one deep and morphing back into zone, and they're thrown underneath and kind of slowed them down a little bit. Never stopped them. They never punted. Early in the game, Michigan State wanted to stop the run, single safety deep, so an extra guy's in the box, but I thought Michigan State was showing it too early.
I agree.
They were showing it early. They weren't disguising it. So Tanner Morgan comes up, looks to the sideline, into the play, out of the play, and people are going to say, well, Minnesota really fooled Michigan State. State by going to the passing attack. That wasn't their plan. They've got a plan to change their play at the line of scrimmage. They were planned. They go to the line of scrimmage with a certain play, but they were changing the play to pass plays based on Michigan State showing it too early. That's the way I saw it. You can talk to coaches about it, and they're not really going to break down what they were doing, or players. Kendall Brooks didn't really have much to say. He wasn't going to give many quotes about things. That's what it looked like to me. And Michigan State, if you're going to show it that early, you better have some really great coverage people. And Angelo Gross has struggled in some of those things. I can see why Gross still, played this week, even though he had some mistakes last week, because he's a very good run-stopping safety. And in this game, you want to stop the run. He's a good, hard-hitting run-stopping tackler. I understand why he's playing and still playing today, but I thought Michigan State didn't disguise well enough early in the game. Late in the game, they did a better job of it, but that's where it started with Minnesota, with a very good offense, just dissecting Michigan State through the air in Minnesota, and excellent on offense today. They've only punted 3 times all year.
Yeah, and he's a good quarterback. We said that going in. Mel Tucker said it going in. They've got good personnel. PJ Fleck's a former receiver. They run good routes. And they're tight end at number 88.
Sure.
One of the best in the Big Ten. I think he's rock solid. And I think Michigan State defensively, I think they did do some good things, and they settled in a little bit as the game went on. But, you talk about some of the things they didn't do. And, you got to be able to move the ball, early in the game. You can't, we had Jay Johnson out this week, and he was saying, well, one of the first things we got to do is have more than 5 plays in the first quarter. They ended up with 6 plays today. They had no first downs in the first quarter, and that put them in a tough spot. On top of the poor play from Peyton Thorne, one of those, that first interception was a play where I felt like he tried to shoehorn it into a spot that he had no business.
That was fourth down. At that point, he's just like shooting dice. He knows they're either going to get it here or they'll get it down there. So, and that one, people were booing a little bit because on 3rd down and 4, Michigan State ran the ball. Michigan State was not having success running the ball. But you can, in my opinion, Michigan State had a 4-down mentality.
Right.
They figured they had 2 downs to get 4 yards. So in that situation, running it on 3rd and 4, I understand the logic there. So they're hoping to gain like 2 yards and maybe get to 4th and 2 or maybe even pick that up. Ended up getting 0. Now it's 4th and 4.
Right. So if
then they drop into an Iowa Hawkeye level cover 2 on that, which I hadn't seen them play cover 2 up to that point. The way they dropped and sank and have the little cover 2 window was short, and it was a small window. He shoved it in there because it's 4th down. But I didn't disagree with 3rd and 4 running, because if you're a decent team, 3rd and 4 run it and then set up 4th and 2, 4th and 1. Instead, it's 4th and 4.
If you're going to split the difference, if you have 2 downs to get 4, then you got to split you got to get half of it. You know what I'm saying?
I understand it. Maybe throwing it on 3rd and 4 might have worked, but I understand the logic anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm the last guy to say that because something didn't work, the opposite would have worked.
Right.
It may not have. The problem is, if you're Michigan State, you've got to start faster on offense. You've got to play better on defense than letting the team go down the field in 10 plays. And there were some times where they could have got off the field. There were some long conversions, and that's demoralizing. But if you're Michigan State, the road does not get any easier. I know Maryland is down a quarterback, and we don't know what their situation is. But you're going on the road. You're facing a team that has a completely different, a different mindset. Michigan State faces the challenge of getting their leaders to rally this team, because guys are rocked. And Mel Tucker talks about a player-led team. There's nothing in my mind, nothing to make me think that this team's leadership this year is better than it was last year. Because
Thorne's a better leader.
Thorne's a better leader, but
you do so much.
But you've got some guys that aren't on the field. It's hard for you guys like Darius Snow and Xavier Henderson to lead. Yeah. So you got more and more leaders going down to injury. It's harder to rally the troops, and that's what they need. They need great player leadership this week, and they need a break. They need to get some bounces go their way instead of having more injuries and going down that road.
There are a lot of people talking about Trey Mosley saying that there was a casual. He thought there was. I didn't hear all the quote. Your thoughts about that?
Some guys just say that. I'm telling you, some guys are always wired to say, "Hey, listen, there's a casual. We have to have a sense of urgency." It's just the way you were raised.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think that's akin for him, knowing his personality, to just saying, hey, we can't point the finger at someone else until we point it at ourselves. I don't think that there was a casual in this, because those guys played hard today. I don't know what he's talking about. There's a lack of execution. You can say that's what I'll say. There's a lack of execution. Minnesota was a flat out better team.
Yes.
And for sometimes competitors like Mosley aren't going to admit that Minnesota was better than they were because they don't want to hear that. And I don't blame him.
They don't want to admit that. And I respect that. It's like when players say that we came out flat. That's because the other team was better. But Mosley certainly was not casual. He played well from start to finish. But a lot of people are going to make something out of the casual thing. But that's my whether I'm right or wrong on it. I agree with you on that. That is just kind of, it's like saying they're flat. I didn't think they were casual. I think they got beat by a better team. That's a mature program loaded with 5th and 6th year seniors that have been in that system on defense for a long time, and they operate it well and they tackle. The middle linebacker 55 reminds me of Max Bulla. The 2 safeties been around forever. They're good. The running back was excellent. Michigan State contained him to a point this year, and he got a little dinged up, but that running back is great. And Tanner Morgan, he had the chalk last, and he was able to throw it. Receivers that are not a great group of receivers were getting separation. He had the chalk last, and he executed in Minnesota, just never punted, and they're good. And I think Washington's good. I'll be interested to see what Minnesota does against Purdue and Penn State coming up. If they don't trip up on those two, they're going to put up a lot of wins this year.
And kudos to a guy like Kendall Brooks for continuing to grind and fire away for the entire 18 tackles. He's going to be sore this week. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That means you've been on the field way too much.
And I didn't see him miss any tackles. He may have, but not many. He's had a good season, and they got to keep slugging. We'll see what happens. But a lot, Mel Tucker's kind of up against it right now for the season to try to save the season, because right now they're going to have a hard time getting to 6-6. So Tucker's got his hands full right now.
It feels a lot like 2019, in my opinion. Michigan State rallied in that, and they ended up going 7-6. Mark D'Antonio's last year, and but I don't know. I don't know if the leadership piece is as strong as it was back then. I think they have better pieces on offense than they had back then, because Trey Mosley kind of saved that season, by coming on as a freshman receiver.
Yeah.
But defensively, that team had a pretty good defensive line, and that kind of salvaged a lot. We don't know what Michigan State's going to have. We don't know which guys are coming back and when they're coming back.
Yes.
They need guys back, and they need a break.
They had more foundational strength in 2019. Things they just knew were going to be a certain way every week. With this, there's a lot of stuff flying around in the air. We don't know how it's going to land. Anything else, Paul? We don't have very much time out here. They're going to close it up, so we have to run. But there's not a lot to discuss. It was a beating today by the Gophers. Didn't surprise me that Minnesota was clearly the better team. I thought they would win by 2 touchdowns or more, but 34-0 coming down the stretch. Could have been 38-0, ended up 34-7. But Minnesota was merciful at the end by just running it into line, the exact same place. We're running right here. Stop us. We don't really want to score. Man, Minnesota could have won this one 50-0. But credit to PJ Fleck for showing some class, in my opinion, at the end of the game, not running it up. But Michigan State's got work to do. I like the personalities on this team. We'll see if they get anything done. Anything else, Paul?
Nope.
For Paul Konyndyk, Jim Comparoni, been watching the VCast from Spartan Stadium in East Lansing for SpartanMag.com.